It's time to elevate the conversation.
Hey, what's up guys? I'm Jean, and today we're talking about a really big topic, anxiety. To be really clear, I'm not talking about normal, everyday stress, depression, or other mental health topics. We're specifically focusing on anxiety. First, let's talk about what I mean by anxiety. The American Psychological Association says that anxiety is an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes like increased blood pressure. In other words, anxiety involves our emotions, our minds, and our bodies. It affects all three areas of ourselves in different ways. I know you know this. Anxiety seems to be one of the top things that people are talking about right now. Influencers, teachers, people in the news, mental health professionals, and doctors are all saying that we need to be paying attention to rates of anxiety. But that doesn't make how we feel suddenly change. When you're feeling anxious, you're looking for possible threats in your environment. As a result, you may feel tense, nervous, or unable to relax. You may experience panic or a sense of dread. You may feel like your world is speeding up or slowing down. Okay, that is what anxiety feels like, but there are different types of anxiety. There's helpful anxiety. See, anxiety is actually an instinct that has helped humans survive throughout time. Think about the person who, back in the day, had to hunt for their own food while also being hunted by like a saber-toothed tiger. I'm sure they felt some anxiety as they walked through the brush and trees, but that anxiety helped them to stay alert to their surroundings and aware of things lurking in the bushes that could also eat them. That kind of anxiety seems pretty helpful to me. And that's the anxiety that shows up when we are in difficult or potentially unsafe situations that can help us to stay alert in helpful ways. Then there's unhelpful anxiety. Today, we can sometimes have those same feelings as our ancestors, but without the same threat. It's like our minds and our bodies are saying something is lurking in the shadows, but the feelings don't match the threat. It's when we feel intense worry or fear over something, but that something isn't anything we can always control. I'm sure we all experience this from time to time, and although it's not that helpful, it can be really normal. Also, there is consistent anxiety. Now, there are some of us who experience a different kind of anxiety. It's like it's always on. We worry, have feelings of fear or dread about the future, and make decisions based on this heightened level of anxiety we feel daily. Some of us have diagnosable anxiety disorders, and some of us just feel like we're in crisis all of the time. Unfortunately, research seems to say that there are more and more of us who deal with this type of unhelpful anxiety regularly, myself included. Look, no matter where you are with the conversation about anxiety, my guess is that either you or someone you know deals with once in a while or consistent unhelpful anxiety. That's why today, I want us to elevate the way we think about the anxiety crisis going on around us. Here's what we all know. Anxiety is something a lot of people are dealing with. According to the research, anxiety disorders are the most common mental illnesses in the world. But from my own experience, and most likely from some of your own experiences, the feelings of anxiety we face can make us feel like we're all alone. We can know that a lot of people go through the same thing, but it can also feel like no one else could even ever understand. In fact, we could even say that feeling alone intensifies anxiety. Feeling alone or like no one else can understand our anxieties might be the reason why so many of us try to find ways to avoid dealing with our anxiety. What I mean is, we try to cut corners instead of facing our anxieties head on. Instead of figuring out how to really deal with unhelpful anxiety in a way that gets it under control, or at least helps us manage it effectively, we do all sorts of other things to try to get around having to take the really hard steps of dealing with it. Maybe we try to push through our anxious feelings by putting on a smile and pretending we're okay when in fact, we aren't because we want to be seen as normal. We try to avoid our anxious feelings with drugs, drinking, porn, sex, clout chasing, or other things for temporary relief from feeling overwhelmed, because feeling any of those other things is better than feeling anxious. We do our best to hold on to good vibes or try to manifest a different reality that will hopefully fix our anxiety about the future, because we don't want to feel in the future what we feel today. Here's the issue with the way so many of us typically approach anxiety. Trying to avoid, fix, eliminate, and go around anxiety doesn't seem to be helping. Like we all know, anxiety is at an all-time high. The level of anxiety we are experiencing is not healthy and doesn't seem like the kind of life that God created us to live. In fact, Jesus himself said that he wanted to show us how to live a full life. So, if that's possible, how can we begin to experience more of that life? It would be so great to be able to offer a cure today, but I have to be upfront about this. This talk won't be a cure, but hopefully this conversation will help us answer an important question. If pushing through, avoiding, or ignoring aren't working, is there a better way to deal with anxiety? A few thousand years ago, this guy named David, who happened to be a really powerful king, wrote something that can be helpful for the conversation we're having today. He was a guy who knew a thing or two about anxious feelings. He fought lions and bears, was chased by a paranoid and power-hungry king, had a rough relationship with one of his sons, and made some really bad personal decisions. Yikes. I'm sure this dude felt anxious from time to time. Well, he wrote a poem about the difficult times in life that shows us a different way to deal with what we're facing. It's recorded in the Book of Psalms, which is a collection of poems and songs written by people that were following God, like David. I'm gonna read through this entire poem, but I'll stop every so often to explain what he's talking about. Check out what he wrote. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. David is acknowledging that in our best moments, we can be confident that God gives us everything we need to thrive in life. Then, he says, He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. Truly refreshing rest and peace come from God. Those moments where our soul feels peaceful and rested, even if it's been a while, they're from God. God wants you to be able to experience more and more of that. God takes us on a journey to live a full life where we can experience peace and goodness. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. We said earlier that it seems like so many people are trying to avoid or go around anxiety. Well, David says there's a different way. The darkest valley he's referring to are difficult moments or experiences we all face in life. He says that instead of trying to go around or avoid these issues, we can go through them. It doesn't mean anxiety will just disappear, but that there are ways to go through our darkest valleys. Anxiety may be one of these darkest valleys for some of us. Going through anxiety might mean sharing with someone how you're feeling for the first time, opening up to a trusted friend about something in your past, getting the help of a professional, or even starting medication. Not only that, David experienced walking through the difficulties of life, and he was able to say that to himself, I will not be afraid. This seems impossible. But David says the reason that this can happen is because God is with us. When we do the hard but good work of going through anxiety, God is with us. We are not alone. No matter what it looks like for you, even if you are dealing with an anxiety disorder that you'll manage for years, like many people, you aren't doing it alone. God is always with you. Every time you're afraid, worried, or anxious, God who created you and loves you is with you. You are never alone when you feel anxious. Most importantly, God makes a way for you to know you will be okay. Okay may not mean cured without or completely healed from anxiety, but it does mean you can be more okay than you may feel right now. When I say okay, I don't mean things will automatically be fixed or better. Like in my case, I will be dealing with anxiety for the rest of my life. But what I can tell you is that once I realize that I'm not alone, that God is with me and there are ways to manage it, I am way more okay than I've ever been before. And I so wish I would have realized this when I was your age. I wish I would have known there was a way through what I was feeling when I was in high school. Things like talking to people who loved me, a counselor, a psychiatrist, and starting medication. Not everyone will need the same things I did, but any of us who are struggling with anxiety can take steps to go through anxiety in order to be okay. In fact, as David closes this poem, he gives us a glimpse at what goes on once we decide to go through and not just try to avoid the darkest valley. Your rod and your staff protect and comfort me. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. You honor me by anointing my head with oil. My cup overflows with blessings. Surely your goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. David says that as we journey through life, we can be confident that God is equipped to help us through our darkest valleys. Not only that, we'll come to find that God blesses us, is good to us, and loves us so much. David says we'll experience a feast even when surrounded by our enemies. Think about it this way. Even though anxious feelings may never fully go away, we will be okay. We will still be able to enjoy a good and full life because God is with us, is equipped to help us, He loves us, and God makes a way through our anxiety. Remember, God makes a way for you to know you'll be okay. Remember, okay may not mean cured without anxiety or completely healed, but it does mean you can be more okay than you may feel right now. And how do we know that's true? Well, David uses a bunch of language that explains what a shepherd does. Rod, staff, leading, all of it is connected to how a shepherd guides his sheep. Check out something Jesus said about himself. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He who is a hired hand and not a shepherd, who does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees, and the wolf snatches them and scatters them. He flees because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. Jesus said that he is our good shepherd. He was saying that a not-so-good shepherd would leave their sheep when danger approaches. As a good shepherd, Jesus says he's committed to us no matter what comes our way. And Jesus came to show us what God is like. So we can be confident that God makes a way to know we'll be okay because Jesus proved that he'd be the one to guide us through life. We're not alone, and Jesus proved that when he came to walk with us. Today, even though we can't see Jesus, we get to follow his Spirit who guides us. Listen, having wrestled with anxiety myself, having walked beside dozens of other teenagers, family members, and other adults who have been there too, I wish there was a magic formula that took it all away. I wish there was medicine, a practice, a cure-all that made it just all disappear. But that's just not the case. But here's what we can count on. God promises to be with us. God gives us a way to move forward in spite of it, to not allow it to take control of our lives, but to find a way to thrive in its presence anyways. Whether you're dealing with anxious feelings sometimes, living in a constant state of unhelpful anxiety, or just know someone who is, all of us can do something about what we're talking about today. But instead of trying to give you a bunch of answers about where to begin, I just want to leave you with one thought and a few ideas to go with it. As you continue this conversation, just remember, how you walk through anxiety matters. Ignoring, avoiding, and ultimately trying to go around anxiety isn't working. So what would it look like for you to walk through or help someone else walk through their anxiety? Here are a few ideas. Talking to a trusted adult. Getting honest about whether you're having anxious feelings or consistent anxiety. Asking for help determining which one you're experiencing. Talking to God about how alone you feel when you're anxious. Addressing the anxiety you see a friend struggling with. Learning more about the different kinds of anxiety we experience. Being open with someone about the things you're worried about. Starting to see a counselor. Seeing a medical professional about starting medication. There are so many ways to begin this journey. Personally, I think everyone should talk to God and talk to a trusted adult. But here's the key. The step we can all agree to take is the first one. So what's yours? Just imagine if taking steps through anxiety could begin to change everything for you or someone you know. Wouldn't it be worth it to start by just taking one step and then taking the next and the next and the next? One step at a time is how you will find yourself having moved through the darkest valley David talked about. One step at a time to move through and not around. That's the way forward. God makes a way to know you'll be okay. Okay may not mean cured, without anxiety, or completely healed, but it does mean you can be more okay than you may feel right now. When you head to small groups, think about your response to this question. What part of the anxiety conversation is most difficult for you?